Just describe your range of emotions, I should say, in watching that game last night in DC.
I mean, it was weird. There's a saying like they kind of didn't piss a drop for 40 minutes. It felt like, I felt like Washington, and that being said, Washington, I thought played a pretty good game, like really tight defensively. I thought they were on top of them as far as pucks. There wasn't a lot of room out there for the Leafs to move, but they got going. I don't know what the hell was going on. Goalie interference, not goalie interference, high stick, not high stick. Like I think both coaches are like, what are we doing here? But when it was all said and done, you got some big performances or big, moments from some big players. And that's really what it was. Marner scores, Nylander scores, although it was, Tom Wilson. I honestly, if I was thinking about it last night, I feel like the play from Tom Wilson was the TSA. Like that was the turning point. That was your turning point right there. That turnover, you're up 3-1 and the Leafs weren't really pushing too much. Yes, he had some favorable calls. But you have that turnover. It's a great read by Knies inside that blue line. He almost gets it by the goalie, and then Nylander slams it home. And right when they scored, I was like, okay, now they're gonna tie it for sure. Like I felt in my mind, I'm like, they've got one. They weren't getting some luck there with the high stick or not high stick or whatever. Lorentz kicks it in, not kicked in off the whatever the thigh pad. I didn't understand some of the calls, but at the end of the day, I knew the minute that they picked off that Tom Wilson puck, I'm like, okay, they're going to at least tie it and get a point and see what happens. So, range of emotions. Yeah. Range of emotions, watching a team going, geez, they don't have it again tonight. And all of a sudden, okay, we found enough to get the win. And that's really what they did. And they get on the plane happy. I heard you talking before I came on. OEL, it's always nice that the guy has his 1,000th game if you're going to have a little party later to celebrate a win instead of, going, hey, we got rinsed tonight or didn't play well, but let's still get drunk and have a good time.
I want to ask your opinion, Noodles, on those, questionable calls, specifically with the goaltender interference. It's kind of been, a hot topic lately with some goaltenders in the league voicing their opinion. What's your take on that? Do you take the time to get it right? Where's the line? What do you think as a former goaltender?
It's hard. Everyone calls me a goalie hugger, and you're like, okay, you want everything that is no goal. That's not true. I actually thought that was a goal last night. I'm sorry. I thought like there was a little bit of contact with Joe Woll's blocker. So, absolutely. But my only philosophy with goaltender interference is the goaltender has to be afforded the room to make the save. Joe Woll wasn't moving. He wasn't trying to fight for position. If anything, I can't remember who bumped him, but it was Hakanpää that created a lane for that player to go around. And he goes around, and there is a slight touch with the blocker. So technically there is contact. I'm not going to disagree with that. But if you look at the overhead, it wasn't like Joe Woll was trying to push into it with the blocker. It wasn't like he was trying to move and fight for position. He was already set. He was trying to find a sight line, which there was bodies everywhere. That was in and out of the net before anybody knew it, including the goalie. And I don't think a slight touch on the blocker had anything to do with it. That being said, I think they're always trying to err on the side of caution. But, I work with Hayes. Hayes always says, he goes, you're going to get a call, and eventually you're going to get a call against that you don't like. That, in the end, they ended up winning. But it's like pass interference. What is it? Like when it's subject to opinion. So the three of us are on this call. All three of us could have looked differently at that play and given a really sound opinion. But that's when it becomes opinion, that's where I struggle with. And I think you're going to get to a point where it's either going to cost somebody a playoff round, a series, I don't know if it cost the Buffalo Sabres a Stanley Cup. They might have lost or whatever. But Brett Hull with the toe in the crease, all of that type of stuff. I think what you're trying to do is get it right within reason. But it's paralysis by overanalysis. I think the ref looks at it. He goes, I think it's goalie interference and not, and you move on. But I don't know. I feel like I know the rules. I feel like I know the game pretty good. And there's I thought the Lorentz goal would have counted. It went off his leg, and he kind of moved his leg, and I don't know. So I couldn't. Last night there was 2 calls where I was like, if I was in the war room, I would have called them differently. But I don't know if I'm right or wrong. And believe me, I don't know if you guys have had the luxury to sit in that war room. It's a pretty cool thing, and they do a really good job in there. They're watching all the games. Everybody crowds around for opinion if there's something there. Like I think the process is good. It just, we disagree with the outcome sometimes. So I don't know what the solution is.
Well, exactly. I mean, so much confusion in the world right now when it comes to interference and all that stuff in the NHL. And that game in general, I felt just dragged on. In fact, Al's brother, for some reason, was texting me off the hook last night, complaining about the end time of that game. I'm like, dude, do you have a hot date? He had a hot tub time coming or something. I don't know.
Charcuterie board he's got to get to or something. Who knows?
It was bizarre. I'm like, dude, why are you so wrapped up in the ending of this game? But nevertheless, I wanted to get to you about Logan Thompson. It really felt like the Leafs were having their issues in the first 2 periods specifically. Was it the whole thing about him being a lefty? Like, we don't see them very often, right?
Yeah, Simmer brought it up on the broadcast, and I kind of chuckled because, I think players, it is true. Players like Rosie, you were a left shot, right? So like left shot always likes to look top glove, cross body, like certain things. All of a sudden you got a guy standing there, which like, it looks a bit weird. Like not every, and think about specifically the Washington Capitals have 2 of them. They've got Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren. So you got 2 lefty goalies. And so I think it does mess a little bit with a guy who has a specific shot. I played with Jerome McGinley. His shot was just inside the blocker post, right above the right pad. For me, all of a sudden, that's a glove hand for a lefty goalie. And that's an easy save for him because the glove is, very mobile. So I think it does mess with you a little bit. But these guys are so good. If there's a space, they'll take it. I thought Logan Thompson made some good saves. And then I thought as the game went on, he kind of lost. Like even on the Marner tying goal, like if you look at him, he comes across, he ends up doing the breaststroke. Like he didn't, like it was weird. I know he was trying to get from left to right, but if you actually look at where, like Marner didn't get all of it. It kind of like rainbowed a little bit. Like it went over him on the, I guess we'll call it the blocker side, but Thompson was just trying to get across and cover the ice. But I do believe a lefty goalie does mess a little bit with the guys if they have a specific spot that they like to hit.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I always felt that the regular style goalies, their knobs got in the way of the top left corner that I like going. I swear I'd still be in the league if I didn't hit all those knobs.
Honestly, you think about it though. I don't know how many times in my career, like the shaft of the stick and the knob, like made saves where people are like, unbelievable save. I'm like, no, that's just like it just happened to be there, like the shaft of the stick. And I didn't have like a Mark Stone. Yeah. Like Mark Stone's, the knob of his stick is just ridiculous. Yeah. Like it's four rolls of tape. But for me as a goalie, I don't know how many times like you get a piece of it with the shaft of the stick or the knob, and it would be a save, and people were like, "Oh, really good save, really good position." I'm like, that beat me if I just had my stick just happened to be a little extra long on that position.
Well, I wanted to ask you, changing topics a little bit, about Max Domi right now. He hasn't had this kind of point dry spell in his entire career. He's struggling. He's starting to, make defensive mistakes. He might be trying too hard at the moment, but a guy that could really help this team and be the engine to a lot of the Craig Berube philosophies. What's your take on what's going on with Max Domi right now?
So you can clearly see he's overthinking. Like, I don't know if you watch athletes who are, talented. Max he's a really good skater. He's got good hands. You can see he thinks the game well. Hold on, sorry, I got a call coming in. I got to block it. Anyways, so you get with Max, like to me, he's overthinking the game early on. I don't know if you guys, I'm going to throw it back to you early on because I'm going to get to your answer, but I think early on, outside of William Nylander, everybody was trying to impress Craig Berube. So Max is, wanting to drop the gloves, showing how tough he is. And there were guys that were stepping out of their comfort zone. I even thought Mitch Marner was playing more straight line, not circling back, not doing things that you would expect out of Mitch to be creative. And so this is going to tie into my Max Domi answers. I think early on, he was trying to play a different game where it's like, hey, I want to get involved physically. Hey, I want to, show Craig Berube like I'm capable of doing everything. And then what's happening is he's a pass first guy. So 2-on-1, he's always looking for somebody. And as a goalie, I'm like, if I do my pre-scout, I'm cheating to whoever he's passing to, because he's not going to shoot that puck. I'd like to see him be more selfish, and that comes. But clearly, in the last couple games, I've watched him. I was in the building on Tuesday, watched the game last night. He's thinking. And you guys know, Jay, you know what it's like when you're thinking out there. You're already a step behind because you're not reacting. You're not using your God-given talent. Yeah. And Max is a talented guy. He's quick. He's got good hands. He's got good vision. And I think he's sitting there getting the puck and going, okay, what next do I have to do with it, instead of just making a play? And I think once he gets out of his own head, and it's easier said than done, he will be fine. We saw he had a really rough, we'll call it a rough start to his Leaf career last year, and then he really got going. Guys that talented, guys that driven, it's just a matter of when, like if and when. Like it's not if, it's when. And I think he's going to, be able to turn it on. But you're right, like they're not getting much out of, the $33 million they were paying the three guys last night. Those are the guys that delivered the win, and Bobby McMahon too. But ultimately, the guys they pay the most money to on as far as a contract status, they got them the win last night.
I asked Rosie this question earlier on. How big do you think Matthew Knies' nuts are?
They're getting...
Dude, like, oh, man, we love him on this podcast. I don't know how much you pay attention to what we do, but, man, this guy, he is so likable, Noodles.
He is, and, he's got, like, he's just like O calls it hockey head. Like, he's got this big head. He's got this big body, like, and he's starting... What's exciting for me is watching a young player figure out the league. Your first time around, your first year, you just kind of, everything's overwhelming. It's new building, new players to play against that. And then your second time around, you're like, okay, I know this league. Now he's starting to realize, okay, I'm big. I'm a lot bigger than a lot of guys out here. I can win a physical battle. I can hold on to the puck a little bit more. I can do he had that shot in the slot last night. Like that was a pretty impressive play, because it comes to him and it almost like, you can tell he's watched Austin. You can tell he's watched guys, because he turned and fired it like really quick. And I thought Thompson made a good save, and it was the same type of thing. Thompson made the save with the glove where that would have been blocker side on other goalies. But I think Knies is, I don't want to say scratching the surface, because you are seeing some good things, and we saw some good things last year. But it'll be impressive to see what he's like 3 years from now, when he just knows the league inside and out and knows, hey, I can hold on to this puck a little bit more on the wall because nobody's going to take it from me. Or I can get there on the forecheck and I can run somebody through the boards because I'm bigger and stronger than them just naturally. So it is exciting to see the progression of a player. And it doesn't hurt to play with those two guys. I mean, honest to God, get your stick on the ice and go to the net, and you're going to get some good things. Ask Bunting, ask Zach Hyman. That's really what it is.
True. How about Joseph Woll having that hiccup at the start, not even making it to opening night, getting the injury, and then the mental side of it to have Stolarz just absolutely take off and be the talk of the town. How have you liked his response to that? And now that he's got a couple games under his belt, where do you think his head's at?
A lot better. It's hard when you start the season, and the thing is unfortunately, you didn't start the season with a clean slate, because everybody remembers Game 7. So it was a continuation of Game 7 into the opening night, where this guy's skating and plays the last game of the of the exhibition, and he's scheduled to start. All of a sudden, he's not starting, and you're like, okay, that's weird. And then you don't want that tag of a guy who's like not available, when the chips get down or in big games or anything. And he's got to escape that. But I've liked that. And I know it shouldn't be a feather in his cap. It's like, hey, he's healthy, and we're not talking about injuries now. Now we're just talking about quality of play. That's good, because now you're through that first hurdle. And then into the next hurdle is like, okay, now you got to fight on your hands. Because I'll be honest, like, I thought the only guy who played the other night against Ottawa was Stolarz. That wasn't a 3-0 game. I think that was 5 or 6. Like, I thought Stolarz was really, really good. Now, you could argue that Ullmark made a couple big saves too as well, so that, the score could look different. But I look at it, and I think Joseph Woll has a fight on his hands, because Stolarz has really settled in. He's a big goaltender. The way that the Leafs defend might work for a guy who's 6'6" and doesn't have to be stretched out where the teams give up these backdoor plays all the time. In other situations, maybe Stolar hasn't had the success where he's played in other markets, other teams that aren't as good defensively. The attention to detail isn't there. So it seems like a really nice fit. So Joseph Woll, this is a healthy competition in net. Now it's a battle for who's going to play, a battle for who gets more confidence from the coaching staff, from the team. And I don't mind that, because if you sit back and go, hey, we got two capable goaltenders, that's a good thing for a team.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.